So before we start, though, you may have noted that my English might sound a little bit funny. So if I want to make this very clear, if there's something that which is not clear, please feel free to stop me and let me know so that I can try to reformulate and make it clear, maybe. Okay. So let's get started. So this presentation will deal with the tax issues, and we extended it a little to the documentation and regulation. As Mr. Sinanan was saying, this is of paramount importance for our project because there's little concern raised not only under this project but throughout the Caribbean with respect to the EPA system and trying to assess whether it offers real opportunities for the CARICOM companies. So as Mr. Sinanan was saying, we'll put together all the information collected, met with the different authorities, and we endeavored to make this presentation as clear and hands-on as possible, although there will still be the opportunity to exchange through questions after that, and also come back to the custom authorities. But for now, it can give a brief overview of what is going on and whether or not the EPA agreement is a good opportunity. So let's get started. So we will cover 3 different points. We'll start with the overview of the taxation system. After, we'll have an insight into the octroi de mer, which is a particular difficult part of it in terms of clarity sometimes. And after, we'll go on with examples of applicable rates per product based on the HS codes provided by the different organizations. And we'll try to do the synthesis of all these and trying to assess the real opportunities. And as I was saying earlier, we'll proceed with a brief overview of the documentation and some regulatory aspects. So the custom taxes, the taxation system comprises 4 main components. Of course, we'll start with what we call here the customs duty, which consists in the tariff applicable to all goods from third countries that will enter the EU from its external borders. We'll continue with the octroi de mer. The octroi de mer, we're not going to provide much detail here since we're going to see it in the next slides. Of course, the VAT, value-added tax, which exists in many countries, so nothing specific here, except that it's applicable in Martinique and in Guadeloupe, but there's no VAT in French Guyana. It's 0%. And then the key tax, it's the last one. On the next slide, we'll see more details with respect to the key tax. It's a quite recent tax. It is developed by the Chamber of Commerce, and it is the tariffs are set by the Chamber of Commerce and through the Port Authority, and it's quite complicated because it will comprise 3 main components, which are the loading, the unloading, and the transportation. So there will be a fee for each of these 3 parts. And in addition to that, you will have other variables taken in consideration, such as the weight of the cargo, the size of the ship, and this type of thing. So it's very difficult unless you consider a very specific case. It's kind of difficult to provide some information with respect to the different tariffs. The only thing that we can say, it's usually quite marginal in terms of the overall cost of transportation of cargo. We can just provide some examples. We've been told that the custom authorities, for instance, that for the average fee for 40-feet container would be something around 120 euros. And I've been given also another example, which was with respect to a cargo, let's say a cargo of 1 ton of drinks, whatever drinks, soft or with alcohol, except rum. So for the 1 ton, the price would be 10 euros. So it's quite marginal. And yes, so with respect to that, I mean, if you want to avoid to deal with this key tax and all these things, one recommendation made at the customs was to sell the goods more likely FOB. We can continue. With respect to the taxation system, there's something specific with respect to the FCORs, is that they are organized such as a small common market, meaning that a good produced in one of the 3 of them will be exempted of tax when being shipped to other FCORs, the 2 others. In addition to that, and this is what is here, there's within this group of 3, there is a special group comprising Martinique and Guadeloupe, actually, meaning that a good coming from a 3rd country entering one or the other island will not be subject to additional taxation when shipped to the other one. For instance, let's say that we import something in Guadeloupe. You pay the taxes at the entry in Guadeloupe, but if part of the good is shipped to Martinique, it will be exempted of tax. This does not apply to French Guiana, though. So let's have an insight into the octroi de mer. So first of all, it's very different from the EU customs taxation. It's a local taxation which aims mainly at financing what you could call the local governments. There are 2 parts, 2 components in it. The first one is what you would call the regular octroi de mer, and it averages to, or it ranges, sorry, from 0% to 70%. The average would be more likely 15%, and this, if I remember well, this applies to the 15% rate applies to more or less 60% of the goods imported. So it's clearly the most frequently applied rate. And you have also the OMR, which is the regional octroi de mer. So the first one, the standard one, will finance the municipalities. And the OMR will finance the regional council, partly the regional council budget. And the normal rate is 2.5%, but you can have either a total exemption of it or a reduced rate of 1.5%. What is interesting to highlight is that the octroi de mer applies to all goods, all consumption goods, either imported or produced locally. So it applies to the local productions and the local companies. And before we go into more detail with respect to that, yes, we're saying that the average is 15% for the first one, 2.5% for the second one. So of course, a total average of 17.5% based on the CIF value. And as you were saying, applying to all countries, either France, Europe, FCORs, local production, third countries, of course. So, so this is important because it has been said on many occasions that the octroi de mer might have been set up to kind of being restrictive or discriminatory, so to speak, in terms of import. Again, its main aim is to finance the local governments. However, there are exemptions of it, which all of them actually have been set up in order to support the local industry. So the first two of them will concern the local production, because we were saying that it applies to local production. And the third one will concern the imports. So let's start with the first one. Other companies whose annual turnover is below 550,000 euro per year annual, are exempted. So their production is exempted. This is the first exemption. The second one would concern, of course, the local company whose turnover exceeds that amount annually. With respect to this company, there's a selection of, I took the example of Martinique, but it would be roughly the same for the two others in terms of representation. If you take the example of Martinique, there's a list of 218 products. These are the figures of 2008. 218 products for which the exemption will apply for the local production. But this is out of a list of more than 5,000 products which are imported, meaning that out of the 5,000 and something consumption product identified, only 218 of them will see a system introducing preferable conditions or system for the local production versus the imported products. So as I was saying earlier, that usually the exemption is 1.5 or exceptionally 0%. So let's continue with the last exemption now. It will apply to imported goods, provided that they are used as raw or intermediate material in the local production. So, and the same system applies with the exception for the regional octroi de mer of 2.5, 0 and 1.5, from 2.5 to 1.5, sorry, the reduction, and the exemption of the octroi de mer, of the main one, and reduction of the octroi de mer regional, meaning that from the average of 17.5% that we've seen earlier, these products will benefit from a rate of 1.5. Yes. So here we're showing that table just for illustrate the work that we have done, and I think this is Mr. Sinanan who was saying earlier that we're going to provide for each company the rates applicable for each of the products listed based on the HS code. So we have developed such a table for all the HS codes provided. This was probably as a total 14 to 15 times what is displayed here. But this is just to give you an example. So we've picked up different companies and at random different products based on their HS code. So of course we're not going to go through all this, but you can just have a quick look maybe to the two last columns that will display the difference between the normal rates applicable and the preferential tariff under the EPA agreement. So sometimes there's no difference. If you take printer pack example, on that product, it doesn't mean that on other products it will be the same. But on that specific product here, you will see that there's no difference just because at the start, the EU custom tariff is already 0. And sometimes you will have more significant differences. Yes, we can continue. This table here now seeks to trying to assess whether or not really there's a real benefit under the EPA agreement. So you will see that we, on the column, will refer to the different taxes that we will have mentioned earlier. The only exception here is that from the second column to the fifth one, you see that the Octroi de Mer regional, the Octroi de Mer has been split in 4 different columns. Of course, you will have 2 columns for the standard one and the regional one. But also, what we've done here is that we have made a distinction between the one applicable to imports and the one applicable to the local production. So this is why you will see external with respect to imports and internal applying to the local production. And the rows now will be will make the distinction between the different origins of goods. So the first one, the green one, will of course refer to the local production within the FCORs. So you will see that there's no European tariff applicable, nothing. NA, of course, in the external column for the regional, for the Octroi de Mer. And for the local Octroi de Mer now, the clause will mention that it applies. We've mentioned, though, that, as we said before, the businesses with turnover below 500, or it's 550,000 euros annually are not concerned. The key tax, this was put in parentheses just because we are considering the FCOR as a whole. And of course, there will be a key tax between the different FCORs. So it's not going to, so it's not applicable, the key tax is not applicable for the locally made products within the territory, but the key tax will apply for the goods coming from the 2 other territories because you will have a shipping. So you will have port management, transportation management, and all these things. And of course, you have the VAT. The VAT we're not going to insist is applying to all the cases, of course. So let's continue with the second one now. EU and France included, of course. So no EU custom taxation, of course. The external Octroi de Mer applying for the Octroi de Mer and the Octroi de Mer regional. And of course, the key tax and the VAT. The little star there is there to remind that when the imports are raw or intermediate material used in the local industry, there might be an exemption here also. So the little star is just there for that. If we look at the EPA beneficiaries countries, so this includes Trinidad and Tobago, we'll see that the system is basically the same than for France, and this is the important information here for us, because it means that, remember that really FCOR and France are the same country, and the taxation system applying to the goods benefiting from the EPA agreement is the same like the one applying between France and the FCOR. And of course, for the other third country imports, everything will apply. So if we come back to the fact that, okay, so the FCOR, we could say that there's a little more favorable system, but remember that the local production is very marginal, as Mr. Sinanan highlighted earlier when he was talking about the trade figures. And yes, it consists only maybe 20% of the local consumption, and the cost of production in the FCR is very high. Because of, again, the labor cost that we mentioned earlier. The regulatory framework also has a cost. I don't know if nobody would have tried so far to really estimate it, but when a company has to deal with such a very restrictive and strong regulation framework, as it is the case in the European Union, for instance, the environmental matters. If you produce a good and you have a byproduct and you have to deal with it in a very specific way, environmentally friendly way, trust me, it comes with a real addition. It comes with a real additional cost, and this has to be taken in consideration also. Kristen is going to tell us within a while, about the cost of the prices, in the supermarket. And so France is the same regulation, the same taxation system with the EPA beneficiaries. And France is a really major player in terms of the imports. We're going to see the figures a little in the next slide. And of course, the third countries, we see it was a higher taxation anyways. So just to highlight the fact that, again, the product benefiting from a special regime in terms of the local production are only 200 out of the roughly 5,000 imported each year. And here you see on the three different figures here, France is the first row in terms of the way in the imports for each of the territories. And you see that France is massively the major player. So in other words, the EPA aims is to really try to shift part of the imports from France to the CARICOM countries, and Trinidad included. So from there, we extended a little with the documentation and regulatory aspects. And we were looking at the splitting of roles with respect to these aspects. So in terms of the documentation, there's a form called the EUR1, or also known as a Certificate of Origin, A formula. And you have to provide this to the authorities so that the preferential regime be applied to the imports. And this form is exclusive to the procedure of the preferential tariff application, meaning that it is really dedicated to that type of procedure. It is delivered by the entitled authorities from the beneficiary country, meaning that it is the exporter of the good who would be responsible, the main responsible to provide for the provision of this form. On the other hand, if we look at the regulatory aspects and related documents, first of all, we do the distinction between, there are two types of regulations, maybe. There is one managed by the customs authority, and it will concern the entry into the territory. So what they will look at there would be more national security, for instance, so firearms, bombs, or I mean anything potentially very dangerous for the national security. And a part of regulatory aspects managed by the DIECT, which is a French authority, and they will there more look at the product before the entry into the market, meaning before it is made available for the consumers, before it comes to the shelves. And what is looking at there is more the consumer safety. And this one, the first one is, I mean, there are a few exceptions, but for that one, the system is very, very stringent. And this is mostly what your companies will have to deal with. And Sasha knows the problem perfectly, I guess. And so both these aspects are more the responsibility of the importer, although, of course, the active assistance of the exporter would be required in order to have the procedure completed successfully. So here we're looking we're providing just some examples of what the regulation aspect will imply. Here we're looking at, so yes, I was saying earlier that the standards is more stringent for food, beverage, cosmetics, and what is required usually, roughly, of course, this will have to be detailed with the concerned authorities, but it will be the label, the name of the product, the production process, the composition, the bacteriological analysis, physiochemical analysis, if there are or not contaminants, what type of food colorants are used. And the 5 last one will concern the product itself, but each of the individual components used for the product manufacturing. So this is where it's sometimes kind of a little bit complicated. So here we'll have just 2 examples of some labeling. The first one will be the one for the bleach product, Tropic Force. This is a local manufacturer in Martinique. So you see here the label. Of course, the first one are more commercial mentions, but at the bottom you will see the requirements for the components, and as you may see here, it's very detailed. Of course, the address of the manufacturer, of course, the content of it, etc. And the last one is on the same model, but this one concerns more garbage bags, and it's a similar thing here. Although you will have specification with respect to the environment and how environmentally friendly it is, and if they comply to of course, the NF certification and this kind of aspects. So this completes the presentation for now. Of course, This has been put together working closely with the customs authorities in the different territories, and also the DIECT, which are the authorities in charge of the regulation. They offered to assist us, of course, to continue the process. But with respect to the DIECT, each product will really imply a close work with these authorities, and probably some long exchanges in terms of documentations and requests for further information and providing of the information. And these are some processes that can sometimes be very time-consuming before entering the market.